admission of hearsay. If it is an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted, whether or not it's by Amber or someone else, she will sustain the objection.
All right, Mike, this one's for you. It comes from Marie Henrian from YouTube. Is it true that if Amber's team is able to prove that Johnny's been abusive to her even just once, he will automatically lose his case? Is that a 100% certainty?
I believe it is. It meets an element of the proofs that they have to prove, and if she does prove that, he's got a major problem.
Okay, let's go to another question. This one is from Twitch, and it is waterproof mascara. Oh my gosh, I answered one of waterproof mascara's questions the other day. So back to waterproof mascara. We've heard a lot about makeup in this trial. The question is, what will happen after Amber's cross-examination? Will other witnesses testify for her? I guess, Catherine, I'll throw that one to you.
Sure, no problems. Waterproof mascara, yes. Yes, other witnesses will be testifying on her behalf because she has not yet rested her case. She is only the second witness for her case. Johnny Depp rested his case, which means he's done providing witnesses. And now we're at Amber Heard's case. The first witness they had was Dr. Hughes, and now she is the second one. So after her, there will be more witnesses who will testify on her behalf.
All right. Guess what? Newsflash, breaking news here on Law and Crime. Everybody on YouTube, we're staying on till 3 p.m. Eastern. You have us for another hour. Very exciting because we love answering your questions and listening to the clips and hearing what you have to say. We are all here for you. Okay, let's do another question. This one is from Alexander Boyce. Mike, this one's for you. I'll actually say who the question is for this time, and we have to be brief. We don't have much time left in this hour. Question: who do you think has the stronger case at this stage in the trial? Ooh, Mike Korobonics, let's put you on the spot.
All right, I'm going to move off the spot because we won't really know until the jury comes back with a verdict. I think it's really difficult to say where we're going because, quite frankly, the more she testifies, like you said, Johnny Depp's done. We're going to hear more of her. She may pick up some momentum here by the time her testimony's done, so it's a little too early to predict, for me at least.
Well, I'm wondering what you think of that, Catherine. Obviously, you know, trials, you know, that there are ebbs and flows. There are good days and bad days for both sides. So how do you feel about it? And we just have about 25 seconds left.
I feel Johnny Depp has won his case in terms of the public opinion because that's exactly what he wanted to get out of here. So whether or not he wins the actual defamation lawsuit, I don't think it matters to him. He got his story out, so he wins by that standard.
All righty. Well, as I mentioned, we are staying on YouTube for another hour until 3 Eastern time here in the United States. Thanks so much for being with us today, Mike Korobonics. As always, we have to sign you off. Catherine and I are staying. You stay with us too while we take a break on the network. You are watching For the Record on Law and Crime.
I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get through to him. I couldn't get up. I couldn't get up. And I don't know how that ended. I don't know.
That is Amber Heard on the stand, crying, offering testimony about her relationship with Johnny Depp in this defamation trial. Welcome to the third hour of For the Record here on Law and Crime, and happy Friday. Thanks for being with us, and welcome to everybody on YouTube. We love having you here with us on this Friday afternoon and every other afternoon when we do the lunch show. We are taking your questions until 3 p.m. Eastern time, so keep them coming on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and Facebook. We will do our best to get to all of them and answer them. Catherine Lizardo, plaintiff's attorney from Texas, is here with me. Always some great insight. We have a lot of fun doing this with you. So we are going to look back at some of Amber Heard's testimony. She testified that about this abusive incident that she said happened in the beginning of her relationship with Johnny Depp, and she described what happened. There was a discussion about one of his tattoos. So let's listen to what Amber Heard told the jury.
Do you remember the first time that he physically hit you?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about it.
It was it's seemingly so stupid, so insignificant. I will never forget it. It changed my life. I was sitting on the couch, and we were talking. We were having a normal conversation, just there was no fighting, no argument, nothing. And he was drinking, and I didn't realize at the time, but I think he was using cocaine because it was like there was a jar of cocaine out on the table. I realize that sounds weird, but it's like an actual vintage jar of it. But I didn't see him use it at the time, so I didn't really factor that in. I just, he's drinking and we're talking, and there's music playing, and he's smoking cigarettes, and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm. And to me, it just looked like black marks. I didn't know what it said. It just looked like muddled, faded tattoo that was hard to read. And I said, what does it say? And he said it says wino. It says wino. And I didn't see that. I thought he was joking because it didn't look like it said that at all. And I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I thought this must be a joke.
All right, so let's now listen to what Johnny Depp testified to about this instance involving the Winona Ryder tattoo. Johnny Depp, of course, dated Winona Ryder years and years ago. They were kind of like this really cute couple back in the 90s. Maybe it was the 90s. All right, so let's listen to what Johnny Depp had to say.
Mr. Depp, do you recall at the beginning of her opening, Ms. Heard's counsel mentioned that the first time you supposedly struck Ms. Heard was in response to a comment about one of your tattoos?
Yes, I remember.
And what is your response to that?
It didn't happen. I've never struck Miss Heard. As I said yesterday, I've never struck Miss Heard. I've never struck a woman in my life. I'm certainly not going to strike a woman if she decides to make fun of a tattoo that I have on my body. That's like going into someone's journal and picking out things you don't like. She had made mention. There was no incident of argument when the tattoo thing had been brought up many times, and I mean, there's really nothing I can do. I've always thought of my body as a journal, if you will, to mark experiences, to mark life experiences. You know, for example, when my first child was born, I had her name tattooed over my heart, which is where her little head used to be when I rock her to sleep. I marked my boy's birth by tattooing myself for him. So no one can go back, or no one should go back and rewrite their journals. Why would I take such great offense to someone making fun of a tattoo on my body? That allegation never made any sense to me whatsoever.
Catherine, I'm wondering what you think. Two very different accounts. Johnny Depp says it didn't happen.
Yes, and it's nice to see them side by side, because this is the he said, she said kind of case. This is defamation case. And the question the jury will have to evaluate is who's more credible between the two of them. And the way that Johnny Depp stated what was happening, it's more emotional. I felt more emotional with his statement. Of course, with Amber Heard, you never hit a woman, never hit a man. So I'm not, in any way belittling her testimony, but it seemed more rehearsed as to how she said it. And there's two things that stuck out in my mind when she was testifying. She specifically said that he was drinking, and I think he had cocaine because of that vintage jar. And when I heard that, the first thing I thought of was when Amber Heard's lawyer was actually questioning and cross-examining Johnny Depp, and was asking him about this vintage jar that he had, and was asking, didn't you have cocaine in there? And I remember Johnny Depp responding, well, no, but it looked like cocaine might fit in there. But the reason why that stuck in my mind is it seems the cross-examination of Amber Heard's lawyer are now fitting into the narrative that Amber Heard is testifying to. So I thought that was interesting to note.
That is interesting. And there was a lot of note-taking by her side when he was on the stand, understandably so. Okay, let's get back to our questions. We are taking your questions on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. Keep them coming. We love answering your questions. Catherine, this comes from YouTube. Sandra, a.k.a. Puddin' Pop, that's her name. Can Johnny Depp go back on the stand? Great question. So, Catherine, will we see Johnny Depp on the stand again? What do you think?
Well, it would be really good for his team to bring him back on the stand. Now, I don't remember when he stepped off the stand if his team said that he was subject to recall. Perhaps you might be able to help us with that, Anjanette, if the judge said that. If the judge said that, then he will be recalled. But for now, Amber is on the stand, and Johnny Depp's team's job is to really grill her on cross-examination, which I'm sure she'll be very well prepped on.
And just to let you know, I don't recall exactly whether or not the judge told him he was subject to recall. I don't recall that happening, but he is a party to the case, so he's different than the other witnesses that we've heard from, like Isaac Baruch. He's subject to recall. Dr. Curry's subject to recall. A lot of these witnesses were told they may be called back to testify in rebuttal. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see if Johnny Depp gets back on there in a rebuttal case. Let's go to our next question. This one is from Twitch. It is Katie Cat 1989. I'm guessing Katie Cat was born in 1989. Question, how much of an effect is it positive or detrimental? Will the trial make, this is a good one. How much of an effect will this have on sex and gender stereotypes of representation, given that Amber Heard made self-declarations on being a voice for all women?
I think this case has a great effect on that. And Katie, this is a wonderful question because I think even though this Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial is now, being broadcasted everywhere and everyone is so interested in it, underlying it is that issue of putting up front the issue of gender bias as to domestic abuse. So here, one of the powerful things that Johnny Depp and also Amber Heard has mentioned is you never hit a woman, you never hit a man or anyone, and men can also be, a victim of domestic abuse. I think the underlying issue in this case will bring that all up, and it's good that it is because now we're actually discussing it, and you're even asking about it, which means it's doing its job to creating that discussion. So, great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. Now we are going to hear from Tony Holmes. This one is from Facebook. And she asks, what do you expect cross-examination to look like of Amber Heard once the break is over? She, of course, is still on direct. I think we still have quite a bit of direct examination left from Amber Heard. So the cross won't take place until the week of May 16th. Do you anticipate a turn in the case or perhaps even outing her in a lie?
I think the cross-examination is going to be very, very interesting because of the fact that Johnny Depp's team is already gearing in and really have strong reactions with her testimony. Earlier on, Anjanette mentioned and showed the clip where Ben Chu, Johnny Depp's lawyer, had that So it's very interesting to see how they're going to portray that. And we saw how contentious it was, hostile when Johnny Depp was the one being cross-examined. Now let's see what Ben Chu's technique will be, because he doesn't come across as confrontational, unlike Amber Heard's attorney have been with cross-examination.
And let me just clarify something, Catherine. Camille Vasquez, she will be the one cross-examining Amber Heard. So it'll be interesting to see Camille. Yeah, Camille Vasquez did part of the opening statement, if you'll recall, and she is the one making all of the objections. This is her witness. So we're going to have woman on woman. We had man on man, a man crossing Johnny Depp. Now we're going to have a woman cross-examining Amber Heard, and I think that's by design. They want a woman to go after her, and not a man. And it's probably a lot of it has to do with optics, I would assume. I could be wrong on that, but that's just my opinion. All right, Jennifer Rhodes. Jennifer Rhodes asks, would the jury ever have the chance to view or read Johnny's testimony? Seems like a lot to remember over a long period of time. Good question, Jennifer.
Yes, Johnny, the jury can read his testimony. It is so long, a lot of witnesses. What happens is when the jury deliberates, they can ask the judge questions to clarify things. And one of the things they can ask is, can we read the testimony of Johnny Depp at this particular testimony? And the judge and the lawyers will talk about it. And then if all parties agree, then the transcript, the court transcript, will be given to the jury to read. That's why there's a court reporter there who's typing everything that was said in court. And the lawyers actually get those transcripts at the end of the day so they can prepare for the next day. So the jury also will have the opportunity to read that if they need it for their deliberation.
All right. Well, good question, Jennifer. And you're right. It's a lot to remember. We've had a lot of information in this trial. All right. We're going to take a quick break on the network side here. YouTube viewers, stay with us. We have to take these commercial breaks. We have no choice. So you're watching For the Record on Law and Crime, both on air here on the stream and on YouTube. Welcome back to For the Record here on Law and Crime. I'm Anjanette Levy, and thanks for being with us both on the network and on YouTube. We are taking your questions until 3 o'clock Eastern time, so keep them coming on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. We'll try to get them all in, and you guys have really good questions, so thanks for joining us. All right, we have got Prabhav Gupta from YouTube. Hi, Prabhav. Happy Friday to you. During cross-examination, can Depp's lawyers prove Heard's perjury, and what could be the repercussions of it in this case? This is kind of similar to one we did earlier, but I'll let you take it from there, Catherine.
Yes, great question. Whenever a witness on the stand perjures themselves, it gets supported by other witnesses that are later called or have been called, and to see if who actually is lying. And we talked about earlier that if the judge deems someone actually perjured themselves, Judge Escaretti can issue a ruling and talk to the lawyers, of course, so they have an opportunity to argue against or for the perjury ruling against either Johnny Depp or Amber Heard, and then the judge can issue that ruling for the case itself as to perjury. It could be fine, it could be imprisonment, but perjury is a very, very serious offense to the court, and judges don't take that lightly.
No, they don't. And this judge does not seem like she puts up with any nonsense. I don't know if you've noticed that, Catherine, but Judge Escaretti, she is on time. We do not see delays. She says, keep it moving, move along, she doesn't want any shenanigans. All right, this next question comes from Amanda McNally from YouTube. Amanda asks, why hasn't there been more family or friends as witnesses on both sides, since most of them are key figures in these events? Well, the trial's not over, but Catherine, what are your thoughts on that?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for your question. My thought is, it's really difficult to have your family, special close family, to testify because you're trying to protect them. There have been questions as to why Lily Rose, for example, Johnny Depp's daughter, hasn't testified on his behalf. If I was Johnny Depp or a parent, as a parent, because I am a parent, I wouldn't want my kids or any close family members to be involved in this. If they don't need to testify, they don't have to. So most likely they're trying to support testimony for themselves on their behalf, using other witnesses. And we saw 30 or so witnesses for Johnny Depp, right? And Jeanette, he had a lot. My count was 30. So
right.
They feel that was enough for him.
I agree with you on the children. As a parent, Catherine, you and I have talked about this before. We are both moms. Your first instinct is to protect your children. And I don't know this for a fact, but I would most certainly assume, and I've seen Johnny Depp on Ellen talking about his daughter. I looked at some clip the other night. He loves his children, and I'm assuming he does not want them brought into this because they are his children. All right, let's look at a clip now. We're going to look at some testimony from Amber Heard, and one of the biggest instances in this case, or incidents of violence, has to do with that Australia incident back in March of 2015. This is when Johnny Depp was filming Pirates of the Caribbean 5, and the facts surrounding this are in dispute. Both sides telling very different stories about those days in Australia and how Johnny Depp's finger, the top portion of his right middle finger, was severed. So let's listen to what Amber Heard told the jury about that yesterday.
So stupid. Sorry. It was like a light bulb switch went off. And he started screaming. I don't know if he backhanded me or hit me normally. I don't really recall, but I remember it sent me down to the ground. I remember by the time I picked myself off the floor, I stand up. He's got a bottle in his hand, and he threw it at me. It missed, thankfully, but I kind of pulled myself back into the bar area. I don't know how much time passed, but at some point he had a broken bottle up against my face, neck area by my jawline, and he told me he'd carve up my face. I don't know at what point in the evening. I couldn't tell you what sequence
After Ms. Heard threw the vodka bottle at you and severed your finger, what, if anything, did she say when she saw the injury?
I don't recall anything, but just it was almost like white noise, or just someone yelling. It was just a high-pitched, constant attack of insults. It was just jumbled words to me in a very high frequency, and I was in a bit of shock, you know. I was in shock.
You mentioned that you reached out to Dr. Kipper. Did you receive medical attention after that?
Yes. Jerry Judge, Malcolm Connolly, I believe Debbie Lloyd was there. Yes, Debbie Lloyd was there. Ben King had arrived as well.
Who is Ben King?
Ben King he's essentially, he's a house, sort of an estate manager, and we worked together in London a few times, and he's a wonderful guy. So I brought Ben along to Australia to manage everything. He's very, very good and very nice. And then there was also I mentioned Malcolm and Jerry. Yeah, they were there as well.
Okay, Catherine Lizardo, what do you think of those two differing accounts?
It's very interesting how one is more detailed than the other. Johnny Depp had more detail going on for him as to the bottle being thrown at his hand, and the way he explained it. When he was testifying, if you recall, he actually went to the bar of his where he was sitting to demonstrate it. So you can visualize what's happening, and it's one of the very center of this case as to what happened to his finger. And so, based on the two, credibility-wise, I'm leaning towards more of what Johnny Depp is saying. But again, Amber Heard's testimony isn't finished, so I'd like to hear more from her on that one.
And I think we will hear more from her on that. She went through that whole Australia incident, and you can guarantee we will hear more about it on cross-examination when the trial resumes the week of May 16th. Catherine, let's get to some of those great questions. We are taking your questions on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. Keep them coming, and we will do our best to get to all of them. This one comes from Bree on YouTube. Do you think they will bring Kate Moss? Let's hold that one. That's something to talk about. Let's hold that one. Let's go to, because that's a good one. Let's go to Hrishav Chakraborty. If I've butchered your name, I'm so sorry. I think it's Hrishav, actually. I think the H might be silent. There's a clear audio somewhere in YouTube. I listened, he says. There was clearly showing that talking to some doctor, she admitted that she cut off his finger. Did the judge listen to that too? Oh, that's interesting. So, Rishav, I think I'm mispronouncing that, is saying there's audio of Amber Heard admitting to cutting off his finger. So, what do you make of that?
If that audio exists, because you mentioned you heard it, it's curious why it hasn't been played in court. Because that would be very critical and supportive of whether or not she did cut off his finger. So we'll see if that's going to come out later on. But so far in Johnny Depp's case, that audio, I haven't heard it unless Anjanette, you've heard it yourself as well. But it's interesting that hasn't come in. And if it didn't come in, most likely there was a motion to exclude it, and they had a reason to exclude it. So we'll need to dig into that, definitely.
Yeah, we need to dig. Yeah, we need to dig into that. Rishoff, send us the link. Put it in the YouTube chat. We'll take a look. All right, let's get to this question on Twitch. Decito, she says she got hit, backslapped repeatedly while being held by Johnny Depp as he was wearing rings. You see in court, he's got all of those big rings on. How that didn't leave a mark or didn't need medical assistance, since he is clearly stronger and has huge rings and always on his fingers. He says. You're so cute. Sorry for the bad English. I'm from Italy. No problem. We get the gist. Catherine, take it away.
And thank you so much for listening from Italy. Yes, it's a great question because I was thinking the exact same thing when she testified that she was hit with rings on his finger, and those are big rings. And what's interesting is we've heard in Johnny Depp's case, witnesses, bodyguards, and even people who've seen Amber Heard, for example, the front desk person at their penthouse, all claiming that they've never really seen Amber Heard with any bruises or anything that showed injuries on her face or her body. So it's interesting what witnesses she will bring to testify and contradict those witnesses. She might say that you can't see it because of the makeup. I know, during opening, they brought up a lot about her being good at hiding things because of her makeup.
Right. And she's I guess, really good with the makeup since she's modeled and been in movies and things like that, according to her side. We did see a couple of pictures there where she had some cuts on her arms and things like that. So it'll be interesting to talk about this and hear the testimony about it when court resumes. All right, we're taking a quick break here on the network. Stay with us on YouTube. We have to take these commercial breaks on the network. We just got to do it. So stay with us on YouTube. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. You are watching For the Record on Law and Crime. Welcome back to For the Record here on the Law and Crime Trail Network. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks for being with us this Friday afternoon. It's Friday. Happy weekend, everybody. We are taking your questions on YouTube, so keep them coming on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. We'll try to get to all of them, and they're really good questions, so keep them coming. We're going to take a look now at some of the testimony from the two experts who've testified in this case. Forensic psychologist Dr. Shannon Curry testified for Johnny Depp's legal team. She diagnosed Amber Heard with two personality disorders, borderline and histrionic personality disorder, and said that she doesn't suffer from PTSD, but Amber Heard's expert, as you can imagine, disagreed with those findings. So let's look at a little bit of Dr. Curry and Dr. Hughes' testimony, and then we'll discuss it.
Dr. Curry, you were just asked a question about malingering.
Yes.
And made reference to the MMPI-2. Is there another test that you did to make a determination with respect to malingering?
Yes. So malingering is a term that most psychologists, we try to be careful of it because it indicates an intent for secondary gain. I prefer feigning, which you had brought up earlier, because it indicates that somebody is intentionally exaggerating, but I don't know necessarily why. So I think that's a more accurate term in general. On the MMPI-2, yes, there was no exaggerated profile. I also gave her the CAPS-5. I don't know if you'll remember, but that is the clinician-administered PTSD scale consistent with the DSM-5. And on that, there were signs of gross exaggeration. I also looked at the test results that were provided by Dr. Hughes, and on an objective test of trauma, there is a scale specific to intentional exaggeration on that test, and Ms. Heard was in the 98th percentile, meaning that she had engaged in extreme levels of exaggeration.
I administered 3 of the tests, had validity indices built in that could allow us to address that question. The MFAS, the Miller Assessment, a Forensic Assessment of Symptoms test, is a specific malingering instrument. It looks at malingering psychopathology. Is this someone, malingering psychopathology? She scored a 0 on that scale. So on that test, sorry, not the scale, that test. So on that test, there was no evidence of malingering. On the TSI, there are 2 validity indices, and she scored within the normal range on those scores as well. One was slightly elevated, but when in testing the limits, because it has rare symptoms and over-endorsed symptoms, I determined that also was a valid measure. And then finally, the PAI, the large scale 344 question instrument, has very robust validity scales on it to test for exaggeration or feigning or malingering, and she did not score in any of those scores and those scales at all. Those were not elevated. So the combined results between those 3 tests suggest to me that Ms. Heard is not malingering.
Okay, so we have 2 experts with 2 very different positions on this. Dr. Curry, who met with Amber Heard, and she was hired by Depp's legal team, says that basically Amber Heard was malingering, feigning symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Don Hughes, the expert for Amber Heard, says no, she wasn't faking. It's all real. And also Dr. Hughes had concluded that Heard was engaging in what she called reactive violence, and that it was low levels of violence toward Johnny Depp. But Dr. Curry had said that that Heard engaged in what was called emotional reactivity, and that was consistent, she said, with her diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, and it's a common tactic to administer violence and make threats using the legal system and anything to express a big emotion or anger. So a lot to talk about there, and we have questions from you guys on YouTube and Twitch and everywhere else about this. This comes from one of our viewers, Panthera. Do you think Dr. Curry's testimony will play a part in how the jury analyzes Amber's behavior on the stand? That's a really good question, Panthera. I'll shoot this one to Karen Felicia Nance. Karen, thanks for hopping on here with us. What do you think of that?
I love the question, Panthera, and I think that both of the experts that we heard from, Johnny's expert, Dr. Curry, as well as Amber's expert, which is Dr. Hughes, I think the jury will weigh both of their information that they presented. I am more inclined to look at Dr. Curry's information as more credible, only in the sense that she presents differently than Dr. Hughes did. She seemed to be, and it's been mentioned earlier, not using her notes. She seemed to be very well versed in what she studied in terms of the hours she spent with Amber, and she seemed to have the information really absorbed in her writings and in her presentation to the jury. She engaged both the jury as well as the person asking questions, and she didn't get her feathers ruffled. She seemed to be very calm, and I like the fact that she didn't rely on the labels of the tests, and it seemed like Dr. Hughes kind of got bogged down in the test, you know, the number of the test, the letters. And I think that is confusing. The jury just wants to hear in plain language, what is the diagnosis? And at the end of the day, it's not, she had some issues. Clearly, Amber has some issues. Either it's the personality disorder or the PTSD, which hopefully explains why she was acting so erratically on those messages. So the bottom line is she has some type of dysfunction, mental or otherwise.
And I agree with you, Karen. There were way too many tests thrown out there. I mean, I almost majored in psychology in college, and it was making my head spin a little bit. And I know what some of these tests are. Some of the others, I was like, oh. Okay, so let's get to another question on this topic. This one for Catherine. This is from Bree on YouTube. Do you think they will? Oh, sorry, Bree. We're getting to your question later. I hit the wrong one. This is from actually Lily Roth on YouTube. Wouldn't Amber Heard's testimony show examples of malingering? That is a really good question. Catherine, how do you feel about that? Would her testimony possibly show symptoms of feigning PTSD while she's testifying? You know, obviously the jurors, they are the truth detectors or the lie detectors in this case.
Exactly. And she could do that when she's testifying. And that's one of the things that the jury has to pick up on or be sensitive to, that she can show malingering while she's actually testifying. And what's interesting about Dr. Curry's testimony is she actually shifted the term malingering into feigning and said, I don't want to use the word malingering. Which is the scientific technical term for their expertise as experts. But she said feigning, intentional exaggeration, which made it more of a layman's term. So as a jury, I'm thinking, is she feigning? Is she intentionally exaggerating what she's saying? And there are times when witnesses or the plaintiffs or the defendants who are claiming to be injured, might feign in front of the jury, and the jury can pick up on that and has to weigh that as part of the credibility. Definitely.
Yeah, no doubt. And do you guys think, I mean, obviously, Dr. Curry, I'll just ask you really briefly, this is a yes or no question to both of you ladies. Dr. Curry was in court watching Dr. Hughes' testimony. So do you think, I'll start with you, Karen, do you think we'll see Dr. Curry back in rebuttal?
Absolutely.
Catherine?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
He should.
Now let's let's see. Okay, so we have a bunch of different questions here. I'll be interested to see if we see Dr. Curry again, and I think she will be back on the stand to talk about everything that we've seen. All right, so we had we wanted to show you this clip, and I'm trying to see if we're going to get to that clip where we are going to let's actually look at the clip. Oh, okay. So we're going to talk to you about this clip that happened yesterday. Okay, so we're moving around a little bit here. And this is actually when Amber Heard was testifying about a March 23rd, 2015 fight between her and Johnny Depp, right? They're fighting. She claims that this is after Australia and that she saw some text messages on Johnny Depp's iPad while he was sleeping, and that he was texting a woman that he had been intimate with at one point in time, and this was after they were married. So she said she basically flipped out, okay? I think she said freaked out. She was very upset. She confronted him about it. Debbie Lloyd, his personal nurse, was there, the addiction nurse, as was Travis McGivern. And she talked a little bit about why she hit Johnny Depp. She claims this is the first time she had ever really landed a blow on him or a punch, and she explained why she did that. So let's listen to that testimony, and I want you to watch very carefully of the end of the clip and what happens. We're actually going to play a video of the aftermath. So let's. Okay, so right after this, there was a fist pump that happened. So let's look at that video, if you would. Watch this. This is where they're talking about this, and they're talking about this incident. And Amber Heard actually says, she hit Johnny Depp because she was at the top of the stairs, and so was her sister Whitney. And all she said she could remember was this instance of Kate Moss being tossed down the stairs by Johnny Depp. She claims that she was told this by two individuals. She testified to this in the UK trial. So the minute, watch that, Ben Chu, the minute Kate Moss's name is mentioned, Ben Chu turns around and gives a fist pump to Camille Vasquez, who will do the cross, and Johnny Depp is sitting there smiling. So this was a moment. They're celebrating the mention of this instance with Kate Moss. So, Catherine, what do you think is going on here? She says she clocked him because all she could think about was Kate Moss flying down the stairs. Johnny Depp says he's never hurt a woman. So what do you make of it? Bree on YouTube wants to know if we are going to see Kate Moss on the stand.
What I make of it, first of all, Ben Chu is not a good poker player, but perhaps because he's so excited that she testified about that. And I had to look that up. What's the deal with Kate Moss and the stairs when she testified to that? And it seems that there were rumors that Kate Moss was pushed down the stairs by Johnny Depp. And when Amber Heard provided testimony at the UK, she mentioned that she heard from two people that that's something that Johnny Depp did. Now, I think the reason why Ben Chu was very excited about it is because Amber Heard might have just opened a door regarding prior bad acts, because in civil litigation, you cannot bring in something that the parties did before the incident, because it's to show that they have a propensity of doing that, because it's prejudicial. But by saying what happened with Kate Moss, that might have opened a door as to her prior bad acts as well, because it's my understanding that there were allegations of domestic abuse against her and her female partner before. So maybe that's why Ben Chu is very excited. And also maybe because Kate Moss might testify as a rebuttal witness for Johnny Depp. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering that too, Catherine. Kate Moss, just FYI, when we all started Googling Kate Moss after this happened yesterday, Kate Moss, stunning, let me just tell you, stunning woman. She was a supermodel back in the day, and she was at the Met Ball with her daughter. And I'm actually just being told that Kate Moss and Johnny Depp are still very close friends, and she is very supportive of Johnny Depp. How about that? So maybe we'll see Kate Moss. We have to take a break. Stay with us both on YouTube and on the network. YouTubers, stay with us. We have to take this break for the network. You are watching For the Record on Law and Crime. back to For the Record, and all of you people watching on YouTube, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. We love answering your questions. Keep them coming. Okay, at the end of court on Thursday, before the long break, we have a week off next week in the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. We heard Judge Azcarate basically talk to both Johnny Depp's team and Amber Heard's team about their time. She is keeping track. I mean, I don't know if she has a stopwatch, her clerk does, but they are keeping track of the time that each side uses by the minute, or up to the minute. So let's listen to what the judge told both sides, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Since I won't see you tomorrow, I wanted to go ahead and give you your times as of this very minute of what you have used and what you have left, okay? Are you ready? Okay, Mr. Chu's going to try to use it with a highlighter. Let's wait. There we go. There we go. That's right. Okay. There we go. All right. So plaintiff has used 35 hours and 6 minutes. Defendants have used 36 hours and 31 minutes, which means the plaintiff has 26 hours and 9 minutes left, and the defendant has 24 hours and 44 minutes left. Okay. And just a reminder, as we said from the very beginning, once time is up, once your time is up, your time is up. If it's in the middle of a witness, I'm going to stop you, okay? So make sure, the 9 to 5 schedule, when we start back on May 16th, will give us a little buffer, but not much. So I will be keeping everyone on task for those last 2 weeks, so keep that in mind.
Keeping time. Can you guys believe this? All right. Karen, I'm going to start with you on this one. We have a question from one of our viewers on YouTube, and it's from, I think it's from Bree, and she wants to know, have you ever heard of a trial being timed? So Karen, I think we've heard the judge talk about this before, but have you ever heard of a trial being timed, and why is it timed?
No, I have never heard of a trial being timed. And I believe what the judge is trying to do is put a fire underneath both the plaintiff and the defense to keep them on track, because she has a court schedule. For those of us watching, it seems like this is the only thing that's going on in that courthouse and on her schedule, but she has other matters that she has to attend to. And it's very likely that these attorneys, both on the plaintiff's and the defendant's side, could go on for months, probably, with bringing forth witnesses. Right. And she's trying to wrap it up. And so I think that that's why she's putting a limit on them.
Okay, and actually that question, I misspoke. It was from Terry, I think it's Mikowski from YouTube. So sorry, that was not from Bree. All right, let's get to this one for you, Catherine. This is from Jero Frankenweek. There's a break before cross-examination. Is that an advantage for Depp's team, and why?
That is definitely an advantage for Depp's team. Now, the break right now, though, Amber Heard is still on the stand. So when we come back after the 1 week break, she will still be on the stand for direct examination. And then whenever that finishes, I don't know, a day or two later, if there is a break, then yes, it will be beneficial for Johnny Depp's team so that they can prepare more for this case. I'm sure those lawyers are exhausted and they needed this break because they're not sleeping right now. When you're in trial, you're just go, 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 go.
That is for sure. And it is go, 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 go. Anytime you talk to lawyers when they're in trial, they'll tell you, and I've had them tell me this before, because, you know, what I do, I talk to lawyers, right? I cover trials. And they'll say, you know, I'm thinking about it night and day. I'm in the shower. A question pops up in my head. So it's a slog. It's a slog, and you're sitting there all day, and you're fighting for your clients. So great questions, everybody. We really appreciate it. And thanks so much for being with us for this Friday afternoon as we took your questions. We love doing this for you. We also love producing our podcast. It's called Law and Crime Sidebar, and this is where we recap the day's testimony, and we also recap each week in the testimony. So we really want you to check it out. We really enjoy doing it, and it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. So let us know what you think of it. We have bonus content coming, and we'll be producing it all next week as well. So you guys can all get your fix, and we'll recap more of the testimony we haven't been able to touch on. Karen and Catherine, thanks so much for being with us, and thanks you for being with us as well. Have a great weekend. We will see you back here next week. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day to you both.
Oh, thank you. Happy Mother's Day, Anjanette, and you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your motion?
Thank you, Your Honor. I can only assume that Mr. Chu wrote that speech for an audience outside the court because it didn't really address my arguments. I'm going to focus on what our specific arguments are for the motion to strike, Your Honor. Mr. Chu spent almost 30 minutes of the court's time talking about the disputed evidence of physical abuse in this case, which Ms. Heard hasn't even put on her case, and I can tell you she's not the abuser, and if the case moves forward, she and her witnesses will put on even more evidence of the physical abuse she suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. But that's not the basis for our motion right now, Your Honor. He talks about how Mr. Depp had a sworn denial, and that should count. We read his testimony. He claims he didn't strike her. But again, that's not the basis for our motion. The basis for our motion is the clear and undisputed evidence of non-physical abuse. By his definitions, by his standards, by the standards of his expert, there is no dispute that Mr. Depp abused Amber. And therefore, if he did it even one time, there is no dispute that even under their theory of the case, the implication that they want the jury to draw from the article, which again, I'm not arguing for the purposes of today, because under the legal standard, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to waste the court's time with that. But even under their standard, the undisputed evidence is that Mr. Depp did commit abuse against Ms. Heard, and therefore that those first two statements were false. That's our argument on that. As to the headline, it's funny, Mr. Chu, we played 2 or 3 hours of an ACLU deposition. Now he says, well, that wasn't our witness. It was his witness, Your Honor. He just spent 10 minutes talking about what Mr. Doherty said, and Mr. Doherty testified that the Washington Post wrote the headline. That is the only evidence, Your Honor. I understand he says, well, Exhibit 1 has her name on it. Exhibit 1 has her name on it. But the only evidence in this case about who wrote that headline is Mr. Doherty's testimony. It is undisputed. They could have put anyone else on. They could have called Ms. Heard for that because that was not part of the stipulation at the pretrial conference. It was only the tweet that we talked about, Your Honor, and they chose not to do that. Now, Ms. Heard will testify she didn't write that headline, so it wouldn't have helped them. But they've had 3 weeks to put on their case, Your Honor. They've controlled the playing field of evidence. There is no dispute that Ms. Heard did not write that headline. No dispute. Simply saying, well, her name is attached to it, that can't overcome the testimony of the ACLU. They call them a co-conspirator. Of course, Mr. Depp chose not to sue them. But the testimony of Terrence Doherty that she didn't write that headline, that takes care of the sexual violence headline, Your Honor. And I'm not going to take up any more of the court's time addressing portions of Mr. Chu's argument that don't go to our motion, unless Your Honor has any specific questions. But I want to be respectful.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. For this motion, I've taken the arguments of counsel, and last night I reviewed all of the evidence that has been submitted in this matter. So as to the second and third alleged defamatory statements, at the motion to strike at this juncture, I view the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff and reasonable inferences from the evidence to the plaintiff. And if there is a scintilla of evidence that a reasonable juror could weigh, then the matter survives a motion to strike. In this matter, there is evidence in the case that a jury could weigh that the statements were made by the defendant, that the statements were about the plaintiff, that the statement was published, that the statement is false, and the defendant made the statement knowing it to be false, or the defendant made it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth. The weight of that evidence is up to the fact finder. So the motion to strike is denied as to statement 2 and 3. The motion to strike as to statement 1, I'm going to take under advisement because if it's not a stipulation, I'm not sure what it is, but there seems to be an agreement that the tweet of Ms. Heard is part of the plaintiff's evidence, which is not in evidence at this point. So I can't rule on that statement whether or not it is just a tweet or if it's some sort of republication or something. I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. So as to the motion to strike on statement 1, I'm going to take under advisement because ruling on it now, it would be premature because I just don't have that evidence in the case, okay?
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
All right. Since it's 12:30, you want to just take lunch,